There is something strange that almost nobody talks about. Something I noticed a long time ago and could never quite let go of. Every self-help guide, every wellness account, every calm app, they all tell you the same thing when your nerves are frayed. Breathe slowly, they say. Meditate, they say. Take a walk, relax your shoulders, count to 10. And breathing does help, meditation does help. I am not here to tell you otherwise. But here is what kept nagging at me. If slow, calm, gentle techniques were truly enough, then why are so many people still walking around with tight jaws, clenched shoulders, racing hearts, lying awake at 3 in the morning, with a body that simply will not power down? Something did not add up, and when something does not add up, you have to ask the question nobody else is asking. So I did, and what I found is that there is a strange, almost primitive practice, one single thing, that resets your nervous system faster and more completely than almost anything else science has studied. And it is not breathing, it is not meditation, it is shaking. Just 60 seconds of shaking, done the right way. Before we go any further, if this kind of thing genuinely interests you, the way the body and the brain quietly run the show behind the scenes, that is exactly what this channel, Smart Psychology, is built around. So consider sticking with me for the next few minutes, because what you are about to hear will change the way you look at stress forever. Let me start with a question I want you to really sit with. What actually happens inside your body when you feel afraid, or overwhelmed, or wound up so tight you can barely think straight? Most people imagine stress as something purely mental, a thought, a worry, a feeling in the head. But your nervous system does not experience stress as a thought. It experiences its electricity, as chemistry, as pure raw energy that has to go somewhere. Your brain, sensing danger, real or imagined, floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. Your muscles tighten in preparation to run or fight. Your heart rate spikes, your breathing shortens, and your entire nervous system shifts into what scientists call a sympathetic state, the fight or flight state. This is ancient machinery, older than language, older than civilization, wired into every mammal on the planet. And here is where the walking myth of stress relief starts to fall apart. In the wild, animals face threats constantly. A gazelle sprints from a lion, a deer freezes as a predator passes just feet away. And here is the part that fascinates researchers. Right after the danger passes, you will often see that animal shake, violently, uncontrollably, its whole body trembling for 10, 20, 30 seconds. Scientists who study this, people like Peter Levine, who spent decades observing trauma physiology in both animals and humans, noticed something remarkable. Animals that shake after a threat almost never develop the long-term stress patterns that we see in humans. They discharge the energy, and then they simply walk away, graze, sleep, go back to being calm. Humans, on the other hand, rarely shake it off. We suppress it, we hold our composure, we swallow the tremor because shaking in public feels embarrassing, feels like weakness, feels like losing control. So the energy the sympathetic nervous system mobilized never gets released. It just stays trapped in the body, in the muscles, in the fascia, in the nervous system itself, and it slowly accumulates, day after day, year after year, until it shows up as chronic tension, anxiety, insomnia, digestive problems, even chronic pain that doctors cannot fully explain. This is the piece almost nobody tells you. Your nervous system does not have an off switch that works through thinking alone. You cannot simply decide to calm down and have your body obey, because the sympathetic nervous system is not controlled by your thinking brain. It is controlled by older, deeper structures, the brainstem, the amygdala, the vagus nerve. And those structures do not speak the language of logic. They speak the language of movement, of sensation, of physical discharge. This is precisely why shaking works when willpower does not. Now, before I explain exactly how to do this, and why it works at a level most therapists never mention, I want you to understand something important, because if I just told you to go shake your body for a minute, you would probably laugh it off, roll your eyes, and move on to the next video. And you would miss the entire point, because the technique itself is almost embarrassingly simple. The science underneath it is the real secret, and once you understand the science, you will never look at a trembling hand, a shivering body, or a nervous tick the same way again. Think for a moment about why breathing exercises and meditation, as helpful as they genuinely are, so often fall short for people carrying serious accumulated stress. Both of these techniques work primarily through the front of the brain, the thinking, planning, observing part, asking it to gently override the alarm system underneath. That works beautifully for mild everyday tension. But when stress has been building for months or years, the alarm system underneath becomes so loud, so dominant, that the thinking brain simply cannot out-talk it. It is like trying to calm a smoke alarm by explaining to it, calmly, that the smoke is not dangerous. The alarm does not listen to explanations, it listens to smoke clearing. Shaking works because it does not try to argue with the alarm system. It works with the alarm system in the same physical language the alarm system already understands. So let us talk about what is actually happening physiologically during those 60 seconds. When you shake your body intentionally, rapidly, loosely, from your ankles up through your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your arms, even your jaw and your face, you are doing something remarkable. You are mimicking the exact discharge pattern that mammals use naturally after a threat. This activates something called neurogenic tremoring, a reflex generated by the core of the nervous system itself, not by conscious muscle control. Once triggered, this tremor spreads through the body almost on its own, and it begins to do three critical things at once. First, it burns through excess cortisol and adrenaline that are circulating in your bloodstream with nowhere else to go. These hormones were built for one purpose: to fuel intense physical movement, running, fighting, climbing. When you sit still and stew in stress instead, cortisol has no outlet. It just marinates your organs, your brain, your immune system. 60 seconds of vigorous shaking creates a physical demand that finally gives cortisol somewhere to go, and your body clears it dramatically faster than it would through stillness alone. Second, and this is the part I find genuinely extraordinary, shaking stimulates the vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in your body, running from your brainstem down through your neck, your chest, your diaphragm, all the way into your gut. The vagus nerve is the main highway of your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state, the opposite of fight or flight. When the vagus nerve fires strongly, your heart rate slows, your breathing deepens automatically, your digestion turns back on, your muscles release their grip. Deep, rhythmic shaking, particularly through the torso and diaphragm, mechanically stimulates this nerve in a way that slow breathing alone often cannot match. Because breathing asks your body to calm down through control, while shaking asks your body to calm down through completion, by finishing the stress response your ancestors were built to finish. Third, shaking scrambles the feedback loop between your muscles and your brain that keeps anxiety alive. Anxiety is not just a thought, it is a loop. Your brain senses tension in your muscles, interprets that tension as danger, sends more stress signals, which creates more tension, which confirms the danger, and around it goes. Rapid, loose shaking interrupts this loop almost instantly, because you cannot hold a tight, guarded posture while your limbs are trembling freely. The moment the loop breaks, even briefly, your brain gets a signal that the emergency has passed, and it begins standing down. Let me tell you about someone I will call Daniel, because his story shows exactly how this plays out in real life. Daniel was 44, a manager at a logistics company, the kind of person who prided himself on staying calm under pressure, on never letting anyone see him rattled. For years he handled stress the way most of us are taught: breathe through it, push through it, stay professional. And on the surface it worked, colleagues admired his composure. But underneath, Daniel was falling apart quietly. He ground his teeth at night so badly his dentist fitted him for a mouthguard. He had migraines twice a month. His stomach was in constant knots, and no amount of deep breathing seemed to touch it. One night, after a brutal week, his wife found him standing in the kitchen, jaw tight, hands shaking slightly from exhaustion and caffeine. And instead of telling him to calm down, she told him to let the shaking happen instead of fighting it. Daniel thought it sounded ridiculous, but he was too tired to argue. He stood there and let his hands tremble, then his arms, then he started bouncing his knees, loosely, almost like a nervous habit given permission to exist. Within a minute his breathing changed on its own, deeper, slower, without him trying. His shoulders dropped an inch he did not even know they had been holding. He described it later as the first time in years he felt his body actually finish an exhausting day instead of just surviving it. He started doing 60 seconds of intentional shaking every night before bed, then again some mornings before stressful meetings. Within 3 weeks his migraines had dropped by half. Within 2 months his dentist noted far less wear on the mouthguard. Daniel still breathes deeply. He still takes walks, but he says shaking is the piece nothing else ever gave him, the actual release, not just the management, of stress. Now let me walk you through exactly how to do this because the technique matters, and doing it wrong or too timidly means you miss most of the benefit. Start standing, feet roughly shoulder width apart, knees soft, not locked. Begin by gently bouncing your knees, small quick pulses, like you are trying to shake water off your legs. Let that bounce travel upward naturally into your hips, your lower back, your belly. Do not force a rhythm. Let your body find its own slightly erratic, loose, wobbly pattern. Because forced controlled movement is not the same as neurogenic tremor, the goal is looseness, not choreography. Let your arms hang and let them shake too, floppy like wet noodles. No tension in the shoulders. Roll your head gently from side to side. Let your jound escape if it wants to. A sigh, a hum, even a shudder. This is not exercise, this is discharge, so resist the urge to control it, tighten it, or make it look graceful. Keep this going for a full 60 seconds, though most people can safely go up to 3 or 4 minutes once they get comfortable with it. Some people feel an emotional wave rise during this, a sudden urge to laugh, or tear up, or yawn repeatedly. This is completely normal and actually a good sign. It means old stored tension is finally moving. Afterwards, stand still for a moment. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice your breathing has likely slowed on its own. Notice the quiet that follows. That quiet is not something you created through effort. It is something your nervous system gave you the moment you stopped blocking it. If you have never done this before, expect it to feel awkward, even silly, for the first few tries. That is completely fine. Most nervous system resets feel strange precisely because your rational mind is used to controlling everything. And this technique works by briefly stepping outside that control. Do it in private at first if that helps. In your bedroom, your bathroom, your car with the windows up. There is no wrong way to shake as long as it stays loose and rhythmic rather than rigid and forced. Let me address a few common mistakes because I see people undo their own progress without realizing it. The first mistake is going too fast and too tense, turning the shake into a workout instead of a discharge, tightening the muscles as if performing for someone watching. Slow that impulse down, loosen your grip on the movement, let it look messy, because messy is exactly what it is supposed to look like. The second mistake is holding your breath while shaking, which keeps the sympathetic system engaged instead of letting it stand down. So let your breath move freely, even let it get loud, sighing, groaning, whatever wants to come out. The third mistake is stopping the moment it starts to feel effective, right when the tremor deepens and spreads on its own, because that is precisely the point where the real discharge is happening. So stay with it a little longer than feels comfortable. As for frequency, once a day is a strong starting point, ideally in the evening when the accumulated stress of the day is at its peak, though many people find a short session first thing in the morning helps set a calmer tone before the day even begins. There is no need to overdo it. This is not a workout you build up in intensity week after week. It is closer to a reset button you press when you need it, sometimes once a day, sometimes several times during a genuinely brutal week. If you are getting something out of this, something worth pausing on, this would be a good moment to hit that subscribe button, because there is a lot more coming on how your nervous system actually runs your life without you noticing, and I do not want you to miss it. Now let me go a little deeper into the chemistry, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. When neurogenic tremoring occurs, your body does not just burn off cortisol and adrenaline passively, it actively shifts its entire biochemical state. Researchers studying trauma release techniques have measured meaningful drops in resting muscle tension and self-reported anxiety scores within minutes of a single shaking session. Heart rate variability, a key marker of how well your nervous system can flexibly shift between stress and calm, improves measurably after sessions of intentional trembling, often more than after equivalent time spent simply sitting quietly. GABA, the primary calming neurotransmitter in your brain, the same one many anti-anxiety medications work to boost artificially, appears to increase naturally following intense, rhythmic physical discharge. Meanwhile, the amygdala, the threat detector inside your brain, receives a strong signal from the body that the emergency state has been physically resolved, which allows it to stand down far more completely than it does after passive relaxation alone. This matters because most modern stress management advice asks the mind to convince the body to relax, and that request often fails because the body does not trust words, it trusts evidence. A racing heart does not calm down because you tell it to. It calms down because something physically demonstrates the danger has passed. Our ancestors got that evidence constantly, through running, through fighting, through trembling in the safety of the herd after a close call. We, sitting at desks, stuck in traffic, staring at notifications, almost never get that evidence anymore. Our bodies stay perpetually primed for a threat that never gets physically resolved, which is a huge part of why modern anxiety feels so chronic, so background, so impossible to simply think your way out of. This is also why the modern instinct to suppress trembling in a job interview, before a difficult conversation, after a near miss on the highway, might be quietly working against us. That tremble your body wants to do is not a malfunction, it is the exact mechanism designed to finish the stress cycle. Suppressing it does not make the stress disappear, it just traps it, unfinished, inside a nervous system that keeps waiting for permission to complete what it started. I think about this the same way I think about a lot of modern comfort culture. We are told to be gentle with our minds, to avoid discomfort, to smooth over every rough edge of the day. And for some things, gentleness is exactly right. Self-compassion matters, rest matters. But your nervous system was not built for permanent gentleness, it was built for cycles. Tension followed by release, threat followed by discharge, effort followed by genuine completion. When we skip the discharge phase over and over, comfort itself becomes the problem. Because an unfinished stress response does not fade quietly, it accumulates. And eventually it shows up as the very anxiety, the very exhaustion, the very tightness we were trying to avoid in the first place. There is something almost humbling in realizing that one of the most sophisticated regulatory systems in the human body, a system refined over millions of years of evolution, wired through the brainstem, the spine, and every major organ, can be nudged back into balance by something as primitive as trembling on purpose for 60 seconds. It is not glamorous, it will not make you look composed, and honestly it might feel a little silly the first time you try it standing alone in your kitchen. But composure was never the goal of a healthy nervous system, completion was. The gazelle that survives the lion does not stand tall and act unaffected. It shakes violently for half a minute, and then it grazes peacefully in the same field where it nearly died. That is not weakness, that is regulation, working exactly as designed. So here is what I want you to actually do. Tonight, not next week, not once you feel less busy, tonight. Stand up somewhere private, feet apart, knees soft, and let your body bounce and tremble for 60 seconds loosely, without trying to look calm or controlled while you do it. Notice what happens in your breathing afterward. Notice what happens in your shoulders. Notice the quiet that follows. Do this once tonight, and if it does anything for you at all, do it again tomorrow, and the day after, especially on the days that felt heavy, especially right before bed, when your mind will not stop replaying the day. I want to be honest with you, this is not a magic trick, and if you have significant trauma history, severe dizziness, a heart condition, or a seizure disorder, please talk to a doctor or a trained professional before trying vigorous shaking practices, because your safety always comes first. But for the vast majority of people carrying ordinary everyday stress, the tight shoulders, the clenched jaw, the racing thoughts at midnight, this 60-second practice done consistently can quietly retrain a nervous system that has been stuck in overdrive for years. If something in this video shifted the way you think about stress, about your body, about what is actually happening beneath the surface when you feel wound up, do me a favor and stay around. Because on this channel, Smart Psychology, we go into exactly this kind of thing, the hidden mechanics of the mind and the body that nobody explained to you growing up. Subscribe if you have not already. Share this with someone you love who never seems to be able to switch off. And most importantly, actually try it tonight instead of just watching. Reading about a trembling nervous system will never calm one down, only the trembling itself will. Take care of your nervous system the way you would take care of anything else that has quietly carried you through every hard day of your life, because it has earned a little attention back, and you deserve to feel, even for just 60 seconds a day, what it is like to finally let go. I will see you in the next one.